Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is my live studio audience. Jackson, he's my friend, and he'll be here during the speech. This is my persuasion speech. Man, nothing is more annoying than an arrogant Texan. Am I right? They're always hooting and hollering, talking about how their state's the best and how everything's so great. Well, maybe they're not wrong and maybe they're onto something. Today I'm going to tell you about how Texas is the greatest state in America. I personally have lived in over 10 states in the United States, and I've also visited over 40 of them. I've traveled the world. I've gone to the Middle East. I've gone to Ireland. I've gone to Germany. I've seen a lot that this world has to offer, and nothing beats Texas. First, we're going to talk about Texas in general and what makes it so great, and then we're going to talk about the people of Texas. Now, as always, I like to start out with a biblical reference. Well, today, it's going to be a little bit different. Because, see, God blessed Texas with his own hand. And that right there is a quote from a band called Little Texas that was written. So that's about as good as a biblical reference as I am for this one. Now let's get straight into it about what makes Texas, Texas. Everything is bigger in Texas. I'm sure you've heard that once or twice in your life. If not, I promise you're going to. You go anywhere around the world, people know that quote. They've heard that line before. It's definitely noticeable. Now, why do we say that? Well, let's kind of go into a couple of facts about Texas. Texas has the most cattle than anywhere else in the United States, which also makes us the largest meat producers in America. We also produce the most wool for America. We have the largest whitetail deer population than anywhere else in America. We actually have a ranch called King Ranch in Texas, and it is actually bigger than the entire state of Rhode Island. Yes, you heard it. It's bigger than the entire state. One ranch. Not just that, but we have more farming land in Texas than anywhere else in America. Now I know what you're saying. The reason why is because Texas is so big. Texas is actually the second biggest state in America, second only to Alaska. Alaska is roughly around 600,000 square miles, and Texas is only about 200,000 square miles. So compared to them, we're actually kind of little. Now, when it comes to that, Texas is made up of 5 sections. They're made up of the north, south, east, west, and central. Texas is the only state that has every single landform there is to offer. You go see the mountains and plateaus up in North Texas in the Panhandle. You go out to West Texas, you'll find the desert. And here in Central Texas, you'll see that we got our plains. You go down south to the coast, you'll get the Gulf of Mexico down there. And out in East Texas is where we have our valleys and hills. Not just that, but Texas is also the only state in America that's been ruled by 6 different nations. Now come to that tells me that 6 different people out there have actually wanted to own the land of Texas more than anybody else. We've had Spain, France, Mexico, Texas itself when it was its own country, again the only state in America that can claim that, the Confederate States, and the United States of America. That makes up the 6 flags over Texas, and also where the theme park name comes from. Oh man, talking about that, let's talk about energy, something that powers this house. We talk about Texas is actually the largest export of oil that there is in America. There's more oil in Texas than anywhere else. I know a lot of people think it's Alaska, but more of it comes from Texas than anywhere else. And say you don't really like the black gold, well, guess what? Texas is also home to the largest wind farm. That's right. Texas also produces the most wind energy than any other state in America. Now, we've talked about energy, we've talked about everything else. Let's talk about what all of us like, and that's food. And everybody knows about Texas food. I mean, heck, there's 2 restaurants. You got Texas Roadhouse and you got Longhorn Steakhouse. That right there is 2 restaurants dedicated to Texas alone. And also, you hear about Texas barbecue. You can get a Texas burger. Anywhere you go, you don't see people getting the Ohio sandwich. Nope, but you can get a Texas sandwich, that's for sure. Now that we've moved on to that, let's talk about our economy for a little bit. The economy of Texas, there was a study done back in 2015 when Texas wanted to secede from America that wanted to see if they would prosper if they actually left the United States. Come to find out, they would. Another thing about the economy of Texas, there's no income tax. Not at all. Not a single thing you got to pay when it comes to income tax in Texas. Not just that, but actually taxes in general are lower than the average, which makes affordable cost of living. It's actually, compared to the bracket and everywhere else in the United States, Texas is less than average when it comes to cost of living. Not just the cost of living though, but when it comes to our schools, we have 187 colleges and universities throughout Texas. Texas is actually the state that has the most ranked universities, whether that be in academics, football, and in basketball. Texas is where it's at. But now that we've talked about Texas in general, let's talk about what makes Texas, Texas. And that's the people of Texas. Now there's one thing that everybody knows about Texas, and that's Southern hospitality. That's that yes ma'am, no sir, come on in. When you're driving down the road and you get that little wave, everybody knows about Southern hospitality because Texas, I mean, we're known as the most friendly state around, mainly because Texas itself is actually an Indian word, Tejas, which means friendly or friendship, depending on how you want to translate it. But Texas is known about its friendship. Let's talk a little bit about a Texan and his pride. Everyone knows that a Texan has it, and we're proud to share it. Well, a lot of that comes from is in our classes. Sure, you grow up in Colorado or you grow up in Ohio, you might learn about a little bit about your state history in your history class. However, Texas has their own classes dedicated to learning about Texas history. Now, when we talk about state symbols, you ask any Texas around, I promise you, they can tell you almost every state symbol we have. Now, sure, you can tell me what your state flag is. You can tell me what your state bird is. Maybe you can even say your state song. However, when it comes to Texans, they'll tell you right away, our state bird is a mockingbird. Our state flower is a blue bonnet. Our state motto is friendship. It's actually not don't mess with Texas. That's just something we say for littering. You're not supposed to litter in Texas. Don't mess with us or you'll see what happens. Also, we'll tell you about our state reptile, which is a horny toad. And not just that, we'll tell you about our state plant, a cactus. Our state hat, of course, is a cowboy hat. Our state footwear, cowboy boots. State food is a chili. And not just that, but Dr. Pepper itself was actually made and it's manufactured in Texas. And if you don't like Dr. Pepper, I really don't know what's wrong. That's some good stuff. But now let's get into a little bit something more personal. Let's talk about the flooding that happened in Houston. And let's talk about the people that were involved in that. Now, there's been flooding all across America, whether it be in Louisiana or it can be anywhere that's happened in North Carolina. There's plenty of places that flooding happened. The one thing you always see on the media is the looting, the crime, the theft, the people being stranded. You hear about all of this stuff. However, when the flooding happened in Houston, Texans, we band together and we came to rescue our own. There's actually an organization called the Cajun Navy, which is just in Texas. And this is the kind of thing that's personal in my heart. I have a group of friends. We're part of the redneck mudding industry, which we have giant mudding trucks, which tires come up to about here. And give in mind, I'm 6'1", so that's a pretty big tire. You can imagine how big the whole truck is. They actually took all their trucks, hauled them all the way down to Houston, Texas. Give in mind, that's pretty far from about where I'm from. And they drove their trucks through 5 foot, 6 feet deep water, driving around to rescue people in their homes and save them. And there's no other state around that can band together like Texas did. So now that I've told you about the amazing times that you can have in Texas, the beauty of its landscape, how the people are friendly and nice, maybe next time when you see an arrogant Texas going off talking about their Texas pride and how great their state is, maybe next time you can look at it and you go, you know what? Texas is pretty awesome. They got all these amazing things going for them, and I hope your mind's been changed about Texas.